clusters. So today, inshallah, we are going to a new topic, that is association analysis. Association also is a unsupervised method like the clustering. We're trying to find the correlation or the relationship between data items that are in the data set. So the objective of our discussion is going to be to introduce the market analysis, because we are going to use market analysis as a running example to discuss the earliest form of frequent item mining, which is actually the basis of doing the association analysis. And then also to understand the basic algorithm for finding frequent items, especially the two main algorithms, a priori and frequent pattern growth algorithm. Both of them actually use the concept of frequent items mining before applying them to do the association or to find the association within the data set. And then lastly, to generate association rules from frequent item sets. So as we can see from the objectives, this association analysis actually involves two important aspects or components. One is finding the frequent item set, and then second part is applying the algorithm to generate the association route. That is the target. So this is why we say we are going to use market basket analysis as a running example on explaining how the association can be determined. So when we say association analysis, what do you mean by association analysis? It is very simple. Simply saying that we want to find frequent patterns in the data set. We have the set of data, especially the transaction data. So we have that relational data in the form of transactions. So we can be able to find out what are the association between the items that are in the particular transaction. Or the other one, we can say association between the different items, or correlation or causal structures among the set of items, or we can say object in the transaction databases, or relational database, or any other information repository like the document data, because we can use association rule mining to analyze the documents, for example, to find the relationship between different words in the document. This is what we usually see in the application in the plagiarism checking systems. So they try to find out the relationship between different words and then come up with the result of maybe the relationship or association between the within the data items or item sets. So the databases actually may contain variables that represent set of features. As you can recall, when we are talking about the classification, clustering, we are always talking about the features. That means the attributes of the data. These attributes actually the data, as we discussed in the introductory part, data consists of features or the attributes and the objects that are called the instances of the data. So these features actually in the association analysis are referred to as item or set of items, item sets. So instead of within the attributes as we did in the classification or clustering, so here these features are always referring to as item sets. Each of the transaction we will see in the course of our discussion. And then the frequent pattern. So for us to understand what the association analysis is all about, we need to understand what frequent pattern means, because we are trying to establish a relationship with the data item based on the frequencies, how the data or how the items what appeared in the transactions. So this pattern is just a set of items or sequence of items that occur frequently in a database. For example, you say, okay, now we go to the supermarket, you buy different things. Maybe you buy milk, you buy Milo or Bombita or whatever. Buy also, let's say, bread. So another customer also bought similar items, or let's say with the exception of bread, he bought milk and the Milo. So at the end of the day, you see, okay, what are the frequencies over a particular set of transactions, maybe 10 transactions, 20 transactions. So how many times maybe milk and Milo appeared at the same time in the same transaction. This is what we mean by the sequence of occurrence of this or frequently occurs or frequent occurrence of items in a particular database. So simply to say that features or dimensions which occur together or which are correlated, as I said earlier, milk and Milo are what are occurring at the same time, or they frequently appear in this data set. So this is how the association analysis can help the managers in decision making to find out, okay, now what kind of items are being bought at the same time or are being bought together, so that we can arrange our shelves, so that we can reach out to the customer or whatever. So what is the importance of these frequent patterns? Why is frequent pattern an essential task in data mining? As we said earlier, because we are always trying to see what is the importance of this frequent pattern in our data mining course that we are taking, and then in the data mining aspects of concept in general. So understanding the concept, as we said earlier, we need to understand what is the importance of frequent patterns in data mining. So association analysis will be very useful in finding regularities in data through extracted frequent patterns, because we cannot say that, okay, there is association or correlation between maybe item A and item B, unless you analyze or you find out that how many times it appears in the data set. So this is what the model is trying to do. The association model is trying to find that in the data set, because sometimes we are dealing with the data which, so it's only the model that can help us to do that, so that we can use that analysis to take appropriate decision in our daily activities. So the broad applications areas of this frequent pattern or association in general is in the market basket analysis. As I said, we are going to use it as our running example for cross-marketing. So purchase to purchase campaign and product discount, for example, can reach out to the customers to do that. And also web log analysis. Then we look at the way our web cataloging now these days actually are always arranged based on the relationship of the data that are there. Which is why even in following the news pages, you see that always the data is always arranged, categorized according to the relationship of those items. Or DNA sequence analysis, like in the informatics, actually DNA is trying to find the relationship between different organisms. So DNA sequencing also the broad area, important area where the association analysis is important. And then also document summarization. We use association analysis to summarize the document, actually, to finding maybe the keyword, different keywords, the relationship between different words in the document. So finally, we can use that to summarize. So we can see all the example of this. This is the importance of it. So as I said earlier, we are going to use MBA, which is market basket analysis, as our running example. So this is just a commonly used method in most of the association analysis, in which a set of product purchased by thousands of customers are examined. So as I said earlier, in the supermarket, maybe in a particular day, you can have maybe hundreds of transactions in a week, thousands of transactions, maybe in a month, you see thousands of transactions. So that transaction actually has to be analyzed for improvement in appropriate decision making. So stores can use this information to place this product in the same area. As I said earlier, maybe in the first place, bread and milk are kept in different shelves in the supermarket. So when you go to the shop, you see that, okay, now I bought bread and I bought milk. Maybe they are separated in different places. So based on the analysis of the customer purchases, the managers may decide, okay, based on that, we see that out of 10 transactions, we see that 5 out of the transaction shows that bread and milk are being bought at the same time. So why not to keep them in the same place? Because all that analysis being done to see that how can you serve the customers better. So with that information, then you can use it to place the product in the same area so that the customer will not suffer in finding that different products. And then it was we use also for direct marketers. Direct marketers can use it as information to determine which new product to offer to their current customers. So based on the purchases history, purchases behavior of the customers, then you can easily reach out to the customers if you have a new product which is similar to the product that you used to buy, then you can reach them out. Or looking at their budgets, looking at now you have the new product which is actually closer to the normal thing that they used to buy in that shop. So this is also where you can use market basket analysis to actually support the decision making in the shop or in the business. And also the inventory policies can be improved if the order point reflect the demand for the complementary products. Yes, based on that inventory or policies, because always policies of the businesses are changing. So this analysis can help the decision makers. So, okay, now inventory policies has to be improved based on the order points and this and that. And a lot of many benefits that this market basket analysis can bring to the business. So this result are then portrayed as a percentage. Okay, at the end of the day, we say, oh, only out of let's say 10 transactions, 5 transactions out of 10 actually there is a purchases of the same items, milligram Milo or milligram bread. So at the end of the day, we say, oh, maybe 50% of the transactions are saying that there are these purchases. As I've given this example here, I can say that 30% of the people that buy frozen meat also buy charcoal, because definitely they may need charcoal to roast the frozen meat. So in that case, this result is always represented as what? As a percentage. Okay, out of so number of transactions, so we have so percent that are saying that frozen meat is always buy at the same time with the charcoal. So at the end of the day, maybe you can. This is why sometimes you get surprised. Say, oh, you go to the super shop to see that, oh, what brings coal closer to the frozen meat. So this is the result, because they use the result and take decision. Okay, since this two different items are being bought at the same time, so they can rearrange their shelves. Say that, okay, now you have the frozen meat, and then closer to is the shelf where you can take a call. So that is the essence. And then the rules are extracted or written in the form of left-hand side implies the right-hand side. For example, in this very example, we say, okay, now frozen meat Newton, also we buy charcoal. That means frozen Newton implies charcoal. This is just an implication. So at the end of the day, the transactions are saying that if there are purchases of frozen Newton, it is implying that there are also 30% purchases of the charcoal. So this is how the rules is derived. We see how the rules is going to be derived. Sometimes it uses the arrow to indicate the implication. Or item A implies item B, or item B implies, and sometimes they are not always the same. You can say that charcoal and frozen Newton, you can see that the result may be different. But this is how the rules are being extracted, and then how the model is extracting the rule, and then giving us the solution. How we are following. So this is the illustration of how market basket analysis is working. The goal is to identify items that are being bought together by sufficiently many customers. So that is the target. How many items are being bought or are being bought by many customers in our market shop. So this illustration is indicating how the market basket analysis is. You can see this is just similar to go to the market, take your box or basket, go around and then pick whatever you want to pick, and then come back to the counter and then record all the transactions. So the approach is that the process, the point of sale, data collected with the barcode scanners or whatever means, to find the correlation among the items. So take whatever you want to take, go to the counter, pay, then they will report there. So that report is the data that they are capturing when we purchases. Because the transaction is recorded, everything is there. They can even give you your slip, you will see all the transactions there. So the data is there stored. So this point of sale data is what? Is where they do their data collection. They collect the data, and then at the end of the day, they analyze this to find what relationship or the correlation among these items. So this analysis actually improves profitability, store layout changes. As I said earlier, we can use it to what? To change the layout of their shop, and do a lot of things. And then also web-fed cataloging. Well, in the case of web, especially now we are into e-business, so they organize their web catalog also in that manner. Then product bundling, actually like the promotions, marketing, and they're reaching out to customers and a lot of things. So now they can use that information or that that particular method or analysis to help them actually reach out to their customers. And then for marketing also, you can market to the customers. Maybe you are looking for the new customers, then you can use that analysis actually to make the the marketing, do the marketing. So what algorithms that are being used in association analysis? As I said earlier, it has two parts. First is to find the frequent item, find the frequent item, and then secondly to apply the algorithm. So the popular algorithms, which we are going to use, of course, during our lab next week. So one of them is a priori algorithm, and the second one is the FP-Gross algorithm. FP-Gross stands for frequent pattern algorithm. So priori, actually, the difference between the two is that the priori algorithm, which is all the algorithm being used in association analysis, there is what is called a candidate generation. After the frequent item, then the candidate has to be generated. Which candidate is a candidate for mining, or the candidate for the data mining analysis. And then also it uses what is called brute force method, where all possible items has to be visited, has to be what consulted in the candidate generation. So with that, it involves multiple scanning. We will see in the example, we are going to discuss the example of this, and you will see how the multiple scanning is effective. So sometimes actually this multiple scanning lead to the maybe high execution time of the algorithm. So this is why another method or another algorithm was proposed, that is a FP-Gross algorithm. That one actually has no candidate generation. So this is one of the difference between the two. And then it uses what is called depth-based search method, where it uses divide and conquer. With that divide and conquer, that means it has only two scanning. It will just divide the data, and then the first scanning, it will just scan the first part, and then secondly scan the second part. Then finally come up with the solution. So that actually can improve the performance in terms of time of execution, because actually it avoids that candidate generation. So we'll see the example of each of these algorithms and then how they actually do their work, and how they do the mining after the frequent items generation. So what the main process of association analysis? As I said earlier, the main process are the two processes: finding items that are more than the minimum support values, and then generating association rules that are more than minimum confidence. So we'll see how the minimum confidence and support. What we mean by support is that if you have a transaction, actually you have three items, or maybe both or four. In the first transaction, item 1, item 2, and item 3 were bought in the shop. In the second transaction, item 1, item 2. In the third transaction, item 2 and item 3 continuously. So how these items set are, we say we want the support of item 1. So how many times this item 1 was bought among the transactions? This is what we mean by the support. That support, that means if in 5 transactions or 6 transactions, item 1 was bought 3 times, that means the support is going to be 3/5. So we see the example. This is what you mean by the minimum support. So sometimes we can specify the minimum support. So, okay, now any transaction that has less than 2 minimum support is not going to be the candidate for frequent item mining, especially in the case of Fourier algorithm. And then the second process is generating association. From there, you find out the frequent items that are what in the data, in the transactions, they generate the association, which is the main work of the algorithm, that are more than minimum confidence values. When we say minimum confidence, that is when we have the item 1 and item 2, then we have to calculate the support of item 1, 2, which implies that there is a purchase of item 3, as we said. So you can see the arrow here is indicating the implies that I said earlier. So now when we have this implication, item 1 and item 2, once item 1 and item 2 are bought, for example, milk and Milo are bought, it is implying that maybe a customer will buy a roti channel, for example, or buy a bread. So that is the implication. So item 1 and 2 implies item 3. So always association rule is trying to see that there a minimum confidence that these items are being bought at the same time. That is what the minimum confidence is. That is a confidence level. It's just a probability that if item 1 and 2 are bought, then it is implying that item 3 is also going to be bought. So we'll see how we can calculate all this support and the confidence. Okay, so these are the what we call the measure of items and roles. So these three measures actually are what? One is the support, second is the confidence, and then there is a correlation finally, because the target is to find a correlation or the relationship between the items. So support just refer the percentage of what we have in the basket where the rule was true, both left and right. That is for the product. And then the confidence measures what percentage of basket that contain the left-hand product also contain the right-hand product, as we have seen in the example. Item 1, item 3 implying item 2. So then finally, the leap over which is called the correlation, measures how much more frequent these items are. So sometimes always try to see the based on the confidence, the frequent item on the left-hand side found with the right-hand side without the right itself. So these are the three main measures of items and the rules. So you can see, sorry. So the formula is going to be there. Let's move to the next slide. See. Okay, so for the support, you can see here it's a total of records with the items divided by the total of transactions. So you say that, okay, now we want the support of item A. So what is the total record of that item? As I said earlier, what are the total records of buying a milk, for example, then divided by all the transactions. So if milk appears 3 times over 5 transactions, then we can say that the support of milk is 3 over 5. That is, it appears 3 times in 5 transactions. And then also the confidence, as it measures what percentage of basket that contain the left-hand side. That is, support of items divided by item sets, and then over the support of the antecedent. When we say antecedent, for example, in the previous slide, we say item 1 and 3. Item 1 and 3 are representing the antecedent of the rules. And then item 3 in the right-hand side is representing the consequent of the rule. So now the confidence that if you have the support of items then divided by the antecedent, then we get the confidence level. So that probability will be there. And then the correlation, which is also referred to as lift. Actually, when you have the support of all these items divided by the consequent, we say consequent what we have in the right-hand side. So in all the rules, every rule we have the antecedent and then we have the consequent. Antecedent we have what we have in the left-hand side, and then the consequent is what we have in the right-hand side of the rule. So rule support is actually trying to give us the usefulness of the association, while the confidence is giving us the certainty from the name. We are confident that if these two items are both, or this particular item A is both, then item B can also be both on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. So these are two most important measures of interestingness that reflect the usefulness and what certainty to discover rules. So I always try, whenever you do association, you have to try to say, okay, now one method is the percentage of confidence, that confidence level that we have to indicate that this particular correlation exists between the items. So we see the example. So let's look at this example, see how this all the explanations. Let's consider that we assume there are 5 customers, for example, that are making a transaction in a particular shop. So 3 of them bought milk, and 2 bought cheap, and 2 bought both milk and cheap. So you can see the record of the transaction is recorded here in the table. You can see transaction 1, because we say there are 5 customers. It was reported transaction 1, the first customer bought frozen roti, cola, and milk. And then the transaction 2, the second customer bought milk and cheap. And then transaction 3, the third customer bought cola, frozen roti, canai, for example. And then transaction 4, we see the first customer bought milk and cheap. And then transaction 5, the customer bought cola and biscuits. So let's use this example and see how we can calculate all the support, confidence, and then the leads of the transaction. So because so you look at this, as we said, we are going to consider milk and cheap as from the instruction here. So whether the customers that bought milk, and then the customers that bought cheap, and then those that bought the same items or both items at the same time. So if we want to find the support of milk, as I said earlier, we have to look at the frequency. How many times in these transactions? We look at these 5 transactions. How many times do we have milk? You can see in transaction 1, we have milk. Transaction 2, we have milk. And then transaction 4, we have milk again. That means milk appears out 3 times out of these 5 transactions. So the support of milk is going to be what? The probability of the occurrence of milk here, which is going to be 3/5, which is 0.6, for example. And then we are looking for the support of cheap, because our concern is milk and cheap. Then how many times cheap appear? That is what? Then we can see cheap in the second transaction. We can see cheap in the first transaction, only 2 places. So that means 2/5, which is equivalent to 0.4. And then we say support of both of them, because we are talking about 2 customers bought both of them also. So what is the support of both? This is where we have the support of milk and cheap. Where do we have milk and cheap at the same time? You can see milk and cheap in transaction 2, milk and cheap in transaction 3. So in transaction 1, you can see milk, but we don't have the cheap, so we are not considering it. Transaction 3, we don't have any of them. In transaction 5, also we don't have any. So finally, we say, oh, to milk and cheap, we have 2 out of the 5 transactions. So it's 0.4. So this is how the support actually is being calculated. That is the frequency of the items in the transaction over all transactions that we have in the database. So now how the rule is generated. So now based on the question, we say, oh, what is the rule of milk implying cheap? Wherever we say, okay, now do we say that whenever there is a purchase of milk, there is also a purchase of, is implying the purchase of cheap? So for us to get the confidence that this purchases or this rule holds, so we need to find the confidence. And then once you have the support, then you can easily find the confidence. So the confidence then that, as from the formula, support of what you have as an item set, and then over what divided by the antecedent. The antecedent here is what? Is milk. So you can see the antecedent of this rule is milk, while the consequent of this rule is what? The cheap. So whatever we have, as I said earlier, on the left-hand side is an antecedent of the rule, while what we have on the right-hand side is consequent of the rule. So now, for the confidence, of the first one, that is what? Milk and Chief. So milk here is what we have as the antecedent. So that means we look at the support of milk and Chief, which is what? 0.4, and then divided by support of milk, which we have on top here, 0.6. Now finally we have 0.67. So if we are taking this as a percentage, we say, okay, we have 67% confidence that when there is milk purchase, there is also a cheap person. So if you let the percentage is based on this, you see that it is going to be 67% of the transactions. So, and then also for the lift, which is a correlation. So when you have the confidence values, then you can easily have the lift or the correlation. So what is a correlation? Always rule with a lift less than 1 does not indicate a cross-selling opportunity. So always you need to see that the correlation equals to 1, which is indicating strong correlation or association between the items. So you look at this, correlation or lift is indicating that the confidence of milk implies cheap. What is our confidence here? We already have 0.67 divided by what? And now we have to talk about the consequent, because we say now it's going to be divided by the consequent of the rule, which is cheap here. So now divide it by what? 0.4, then finally we have 1.67. So this is why the rule is saying that when we have a rule which is less than 1, does not indicate a cross-selling opportunity. So we always want a rule to be more than 1 or 1 and above. Which is the correlations to show the strong correlation between the items. So we'll see when we come to discuss in the lab, we'll see how all this can be calculated. So now we can also find out the rule of cheap and milk. As I said earlier, it's not necessary to say that always they are going to be the same, because you can have, based on the calculation, you can have different methods. So we can find the confidence of milk and Chief divided by the Chief as we have there, and then we can find for Chief implies milk also. So all these are the way that we can find them. So we can easily find for milk and Chief, and then we can reverse the order and find for Chief and milk, because sometimes the result may not be the same. So for this section, briefly, this is the introductory part. Now we are going into the main tags of the data of association mining. So if you have any question before we move to the next tags, if you have any question, please. So we move to the next slide.
Not at the moment.
No questions, sir.
No questions.
Okay, well understood. Okay. So now we are moving to the first, after the introductory part. Now this is where we are going to discuss how the frequent item set is being mined, and then how to apply a priori algorithm also to it. As I said earlier, always association is of these two parts: frequent item set mining, and then also applying the algorithm to do the mining or to find the association. So in both of the algorithms, frequent item set is there, but different methods of the algorithms are being applied to find the rule. So how do we understand the concept of frequent item mining? So the basic concept is that, let's look at this example. We have the transactions here. We have 4 transactions. These are the items that are bought. For example, in the first transaction, item A, B, and C are bought at the same time. In the second transaction, another customer bought item A and C. In the third transaction, another customer bought item A and D. And then in the fourth transaction, the customer bought item B, E, and F. So how the concept is working, that one, we have the item set of 1 or more items, which is one. So 1 or more items is indicating either A, B, or C, or D, or F, or F. All these are the different items. About a set of items here, we say, okay, K item set is indicating X, which is root X to 1 to SK. So set of items in transaction 1 is A, B, C, where we have X1, X2, X3 continuously. And then let D, the tax relevant data, the whole of this relational data is what we call D here in our explanation. D is a set of database transactions. So we have 4 transactions. So this is representing our D, that is the data. And then each transaction T is a set of items, so that T belongs to X. So each of the transaction here is what is called T, the transaction, which belongs to different X values here that we have as items in the transaction. And then we have the absolute support or support count of X, which is a frequency or occurrence of an item set X. So item set, let's say A. You can see that in 3 transactions here we have A, for example. So the support of A here, we say, oh, we have 3/4, for example. What about B? You can say, oh, for B we have 2/4. So this is the support count. We want to count the support. You look at all the transactions. Say, okay, now how many times this particular item set is occurring. So now an item set is frequent if X support is no less than the minimum support threshold. So usually you can see that there is a threshold. You say, okay, now the threshold of the support count, especially sometimes you are in the algorithm, we say, okay, the algorithm will work on the support count of 2. So if any of the data actually that does not satisfy that condition, then it's going to be excluded from the count, from the count. So like F here, it appears 1 time. So if the support threshold is 2, for F is not going to be considered. E also is not going to be considered because their support count A is what? Is less than 2, for example. So this is a threshold. So sometimes a threshold is specified. So how many candidates for K items X are generated? This is a simple formula. N chooses R, where we have the factorial value here, which is equals to number. N is just the number of items set, which is what? Either R is representing the K here. K item set, we say, okay, now we have 5 item set, 6 item set, 7 item sets, depending on the number of items that we have. So now, for example, in transaction 1, we have 3 item sets. In transaction 2, we have 2 item sets. In transaction 3, we have 2 item set again, and then we have 3 items set in the last transaction. These are the items. So number of K is representing that items in the data set. So let's see the example how this concept is working. Example. So as we said earlier, the first step is to find the frequent patterns, and the last step, second step, is generate the association rule. This is how the association analysis is working as we are insisting. So for the frequent items, as we said, we have the support, that is the probability of that transactions contains X and Y in the transaction, and then generate association rule, where we have X implies Y, which we have already discussed in the previous slide, using the minimum confidence from frequent items. And then the confidence is a conditional probability. And to tell us that, okay, now this is a conditional probability that any transaction having X also contains Y. For example, any transaction having A also contains B. Is this possible? So this is a confidence. How many percent of the confidence? What is the percentage of the confidence that whenever a transaction contains A should also contain C or contains B? Whenever the transaction contains C can also contains A. This is what the conditional probability is trying to indicate here. So this is why we call it a confidence. So that confidence level is important. We have already explained the process, and then we already explained the formula. So let's see how this can help us to find out. So for example, now the first step is to find the frequent patterns by calculating support value for each item or item set. And then we discard any irrelevant item or item set. Irrelevant here, we are referring to anyone that does not satisfy the threshold. So when we say the threshold is 2, for example, then we have to look at the minimum confidence given here. We say that minimum support equals to 50%. So if there is any item here or item set that does not satisfy the minimum support of 50, then we cannot consider it in what? In calculating the support here. So take note of this. So if the minimum support is given like this, 50%, and then the minimum confidence is also given as 50%. So we'll see how we can what? Do the binding or the association rule. So for example, now we look at these transactions. We have 4 transactions here. What is the support of A from the transactions? You can see how many times do we have A? 1, 2, 3. A appears 3 times. 3 times is what? 3/4. 3/4 will give us a 70% of the transactions. I mean, in 70% of the transaction, A appears in these transactions. And then what of for B? That means A satisfies the condition because it is above the minimum support, which is 75%. And then what of B? Can you say, okay, now how many times B appears? 2 out of 4 transactions, exactly 50%, because 2 times is indicating 50% of 4 transactions, 2/4. So that means 2/4 is giving us 50% if we calculate it as a percentage. So now this one also satisfied because the minimum is 50%, minimum support is 50%. And then for D, because D appears only 1 time in all the 3 or 4 transactions, so that means 1/4 is giving us 25%. When we calculate the percentage, that means it is going out. Oh, we are not considering it. We are discarding it as an irrelevant item set. You get the point. And then also for A and B, what transaction do we have A and B? How many places? A and B, only 1. Then the 2 items, so this is why here we say item or item set. This is the item for 1 item. And then for 2 item sets, we say A and B. Then it appears only 1 time. So now we have it also as 25%, which is also not satisfy the minimum support. So it is going to be discarded as irrelevant item set. And then the next one is A and C. How many times we have A and C in the first transaction? We have A and C in the second transaction. That means they appears what? 2 times in all the 4 transactions. That means that's satisfied the 50%, right? Then what of A and D? So A and D here, you see that you have only 1 place where we have A and D, which is also amounting to 25%, which is below the minimum support. So that means they are not what? They are going to be discarded. So this is how the preform pattern actually is being established by calculating the support values with due consideration to the given condition. Actually, as we said here, the condition is saying that it must be what? More than 50% or 50% and above. So anything less than 50% is not considered. So that one is for 1 item set and the 2 item set. And then you see that by selection now, we are going to generate the rule. In generating the rule, all those that have been discarded are not going to be considered because they are what? Not supposed to be here. So now we want to calculate the competence. We will generate the rule by calculating the competence. So now we are left with only these transactions that satisfy the minimum support. You can see in the column of support where we have A, B, A, C, and A and C at the same time. So we want to establish the rule for A implies C. Wherever the transaction of A item, there is also C item. We want to find out the competence. So as we calculated the support, it's giving us here. This is just a formula. Just trying to recap the formula here. We have the support of 50%. And then the competence here, once we have the support, then we can also calculate the competence, which is simple. Now we say, okay, competence, just a support of A and C. What is our support of A and C here? We have the support of A and C, which is 50% here, 2/what? 2/4, indicating 50%. Then divided by support of A, which is the antecedent, if you remember our previous slide. So the antecedent is support of A, where we have 3/4, which is mounting 75%. So finally, we have 2/3, which is 66.7%, which is above the confidence level. So finally, we multiply it, we can get 67%, and then the minimum confidence is still 50%. So that is how the confidence is calculated. So that means if the confidence is less than the minimum confidence of 50%, then the rule is not going to be generated, and we also discard it. And then you can also reverse the case, say, okay, now what is the confidence of C implies A? Actually, it's going to be different. So because you see now wherever you have C, and then it's not possible that you have A, then you have, you can calculate it to say, okay, now in this case, now you are dividing with the support of C. Now we have 50%. So now we have 50 over 50. Finally, you can have 100% confidence that wherever there is A, there is C, there is A. So you can, if you go back and refer to the table here, you can easily testify to that. Wherever there is C, there is A. You can see in the first transaction, we have C and A. If you take C as your what? As antecedent. So now in the second transaction, we have C and A. So that means out of 4 transactions, we have wherever there is C, there is also A. But not in the case of A implies C, because we can have another transaction here, transaction 3, where there is no C. So this is why we have 66%. And then the last transaction also, there is no C. So if say the rule is A implies C, you see that we have 67.66.7%. While for C implies A, when you take it as a reverse case, wherever you have C, you have A in your data set. So that means there is 100% confidence in these transactions that wherever we have the purchase of item C, we also have the purchase of item A. This is why initially we say the result is always portrayed in percentage. So this is how it is calculated. Then you can take time, follow us step by step, and then you can apply the method. So you can see how the step 2 is generated. The rule is generated based on the minimum confidence that we have. So now, having seen how the frequent item set is being calculated, then how the algorithm can be applied to generate all these. The a priori, actually, the frequent item set, which is A, has a candidate set generation. If you remember, we said one of the properties of a priori algorithm is that there is candidate generation, which is absent in the FP cross algorithm. So this is one of the things that a priori algorithm is doing in generating what? In doing the mining. So any subset of frequent item set must be what? Frequent. So if Milik, for example, and therefore not is frequent, so also Milik and therefore. And every transaction having Milik, therefore not, and not also contains Milik and therefore, as we can see in the previous example. So we'll see the example of how a priori algorithm is being applied. So a priori, as we said earlier, is using what is called a pruning principle. If there is any item set which is infrequent, it is superset should not be generated or tested. So as you can see, finally, from the previous calculation, if it is not frequent, then it's not be generated. So this is as steps. Initially, to scan the database once to get the frequent one item set. Well, like in the case of our example, you have one item set A, B, C, D, then generate lens from K plus 1, where we have the candidate item sets. That is where we have another item set, like 2 item sets. Then to test the candidate set against the database. So this is why actually we say that this candidate generation and test approach actually make it to be sometimes more time consuming, because it has to scan all the database, get the first frequent item, scan again, generate the lens, that is K plus 1, where you have another item set, let's say items 2. Then from the K-lens frequent item set, then you also test with the data set. So this is why actually it is, and finally it will terminate when no frequent or candidate set can be generated. So this is just as simply the flow of the a priori algorithm, how it works, and what in generating the rules. So let's follow the steps one by one and see how this a priori is working. But if you have any question, please, you can ask. You have any question up to this step?
So far, no.
sir.
Okay. So now step 1 is in the mining frequent items. So we have to consider this this in mind. A brute force approach that traverses all possible item sets, determines their support. Yes, as we can see in determining the support, and discard infrequent item sets. Sometimes it's, in the case of a big data host, it's okay, now the data items that are not frequent, then it will discard it from the data. So in this case, actually, it's sometimes very difficult for this algorithm. And then the number of possible items set grows exponentially with the number of items is simple. In the case of maybe a very big transactions, so a typical supermarket offers tens of thousands of different products. So actually, this point there is possibility of exponential growth of number of item sets, because people are always buying. Okay, now maybe the first customer bought 3 things at the same time. You can see a particular or one customer coming to the supermarket buying maybe 50 different items at the same time. So it depends on the, so it's actually the typical supermarket, you can see that there is that tendency of exponential growth of different number of item sets. Because you can see that rarely one customer go to buy only a single item, or maybe some are buying 2, 3 continuously. So it depends on the transactions. Then a priori property, actually no superset of an infrequent item set can be frequent. That is downward closure, pre-space search or support value. So a priori, as we said, actually we have to consider all these properties that we have listed earlier, and then we'll see how they work. So now let's look at this as example with our transaction that we have used to find the frequent items previously. So the first thing is how to generate the candidates, because we said a priori algorithm always generate candidate sets. So how does it generate the candidate set? The first step is what is called step joining. That is, if you have the data, which is an LK or K particular item, then a set of candidate K items is generated by joining this LK plus 1. That means starting with what? With one item set, this is what is called LK. Then next 2 item set, which is called LK plus 1, continuously incrementing. It will keep incrementing the what? The items until all the item sets that are in the transactions are what? Visited. So this is why actually we are always saying that it is time consuming actually, because now it is starting with only one item set, scan the data set, check which one satisfy the condition of the support, then maybe generate the list, the first list of items, then scan again, then generate the second list of items continuously up to the highest number. So as we said, actually in the typical ordinary supermarket, you see that the transaction may exponentially items that exponentially grow, because now people may be buying many things at the same time. But if it is only, because this process is only 3 item sets. What if it is 10 item sets? You go to the supermarket and pick 10 items and both at the same time, maybe or 50 items at the same time. So that is it. So the first point is saying that it will be on joining until all the candidate sets actually are satisfied or are what visited. And then the step 2 is what is called the pruning. So if any K minus 1 subset of a candidate K item is not L minus K, then the candidate cannot be frequent either, and so can be removed from the CK. Simply to say that if the candidate is not satisfied this condition, then just going to be removed from the list. So if you look at the database here, so starting with the data set, this diagram is trying to show you how the a priori algorithm is working. The data set, the database has what? Has 4 transactions. The first scan of the data, the algorithm will scan this data set and find out what is going to be what? The candidates, because it starts with the candidate generation. So the candidate for what? For item set 1, we call it C1, where we have A, B, C, D up to what? Up to E here in these transactions. So how many times do we have A in these transactions? A and A here, first transaction and third transactions, we have A and A. So that means A appears 2 times out of 4 transactions. So we have the support of 2. Then it will also scan and say, okay, now how many times B appears? 3 times. How many times C appears? 3 times. How many times D? 1 time. How many times E? 3 times. So you look at this because the support is already given here. The minimum support, which is indicated as sub minimum, is indicating the support, which is equals to 2. So any candidate here that has not satisfied the support of 2 is not going to be listed as an item set list. We get the point. So now it is going to be pruned and then removed from the list. Then the list is going to be A, B, C, E, while D has already gone because D appears only 1 time, which is less than the minimum support. So that means we have this list. Then next, to scan the data set again, you look at this. This is why we say actually, a priori, actually it's time consuming. Now to go back to the data set and see where do we have A and B, because now we are moving to the 2 item sets. We are done with the 1 item set, A, B to E to D. Now, where do we have 2 item sets at the same time? Where do we have A and B? Where do we have A and C? Where do we have A and E? Where do we have B and C? Where do we have B and E? Where do we have C and E? So you see, looking at this, actually, if you are dealing with a big data set, you see only the data set with only 4 transactions. Now you see how this is being done. So now you say, okay, now how many times do we have A and B in the transaction? Transaction 1, no A and B. Transaction 2, no A and B. Transaction 3, we have A and B. Transaction 4, no. That means 1 time, which is the support is 1. For the A and C, how many times do we have A and C? You look at the data set. Transaction 1, we have A and C. No A and C in transaction 2. Transaction 3, we have A and C. Not A and C in transaction 4. Then we say the support is 2 because we have 2 transactions where we have A and C. And then the algorithm will check, say, okay, do we have anywhere we have A and E? We have it only 1 place. A and E, you can see it in transaction number 3, transaction with ID 30. And then B and C, we have 2 place, transaction number 20 and transaction number 30. We have B and C. So we have 2. What were B and E? Transaction number 20, transaction 2, transaction 3, we have B and E, and then transaction 4, that means 3. What of C and E? We have 2, which is transaction 2 and transaction 3. So this is how it is. So finally, we prune to remove what? Wherever we have minimum less than the minimum support. So A and B is gone, A and E is gone. Then finally, we have our L2 here, the increment here that we have LK plus 1. So now we have this. So we have AC2. We have BC2, we have BE3, and then we have CE2. Then next, moving to C3, where we have 3 item sets. So you can see where do we have 3 item sets? We have B, C, and E, and then we have B, C, and E 2 times. That's the only place where we have so B, C, and E appears to be transaction 2 and transaction 3. So finally, we have this. So this is how it is. So if you move maybe to the per item set, you can also see it. So now, continue with the example you see. Now we have, sorry, the database. We have the candidate of 1 item set. Due to the first scan, then we have the result here, which is for an item set, frequent items. The support is 2. Then we prune frequent item less than the minimum support. As I said earlier, we check the occurrence of the items in database. We prune, and you see now we prune D, so we remove it from the data set. So this is the example of the process that we have done. Then, can you see the process? All these are the example. It's just explanation of what we have done earlier. So this SC1 is indicating the candidate of 1 item set. L1 is candidate 1 item set list, and then C2 is a 2-item set where we have this, and then C3 is a 3-item sets. And then if there are 4-item sets, then you can also see it in the database. So always, as I said, it has to consider the support. So you could remember the steps of the algorithm. It terminates here because no more item sets that satisfies the minimum support here. You can see that is no, for the 4-item set, A, B, C, and E appears only one time. So candidate generation for item sets L2, you see that we have A, C, B, C, B, E, and C, E. Okay, here. So A, B, C from A, C, and B, C, then not generated. See that implies that the rule is not generated. And then ACE from AC and CE, BCE from B, C, C, and E, and BE and CE. So the pruning is that ABC is removed because AB, one of the subset, is not in L2. You can see AB is not in L2. So the algorithm will just prune and remove it. And then ACE is removed because AE, the subset, is not in L2 again. You can see AE is not in L2. So the algorithm will keep on working on that up to the end of when it get the final candidate set. And then frequent item set also can be represented using the HIC diagram. This HIC diagram is proposed by Vogel in 2009. So you can see HIC diagram with item sets has minimum of support of 3. They use S as a support, which is a minimum of 3. So you can see in this diagram, it is indicating that wherever you see blue, here blue is indicating the frequent items, while the white boxes here are indicating the infrequent items. So this diagram of this method can be used also to scan the transactions and then generate the frequent item set. So you can see A and B and C and D and E actually are what? Are frequent in all these transactions. We have 10 transactions here. So you see A appears many times, many transactions. This is why it's indicated in a blue box. While B also, you see that B appears maybe in different places. You can see B here, you can see B here, you can see B here. So B is also frequent. So wherever that is infrequent, you can see it like A and B is infrequent. Maybe it appears only once or it doesn't appear at all. And then also B and D, but A and C maybe appears in different places like here. So this is how this HIC diagrams actually help also in identifying the frequent item sets. So now, when we generate the frequent items, as we said, the algorithm is just about generating the frequent items and then generating the rules at the end of the day. So now we have seen how the item set are being calculated based on the support. Then we find the frequent. So the algorithm, next component part of the algorithm is to generate the rules. How does the rule being generated is by calculating the confidence support. So once the frequent item set from transactions in database D have been found, it is straightforward to generate strong association rule from them, where strong association rules satisfy both minimum support and minimum confidence. So this is what actually minimum support and minimum confidence is always given, as we have discussed previously. So if the association does not satisfy the minimum confidence, say minimum confidence, for example, let's say 70%. But after calculating the confidence in each of the transactions, you see that the minimum association confidence that we have is less than the 70%. Then finally you say, okay, now the association is not strong in this particular case because when we calculate the lift or the correlation, it's going to be maybe less than 1. So how do we generate the rule? Let's look at the process here. Okay, so can you see our transaction is still there? Frequent item patterns for one item set from the data from our previous explanation of frequent items. Then for the 3-item set, we have this as a support. For the 2-item set, we have this. So which rule will be generated with minimum confidence of 70%. So that means here, any rule that we want to generate here, it has to satisfy the 70% minimum confidence. So if we go less than minimum percent, that means it does not satisfy the rule. Then it's not satisfied, then the algorithm will just prune it and remove it from the list of association. So it will not show that the association is strong, or it is, so that we cannot use it for decision making. So let's look at this one. Our formula of calculating the confidence is there. We say support of A and C. We are talking about the support of A and C divided by support of A. So for two item sets, let's say A and C here, we can have two rules. One rule is A implies C, and another rule is the reverse, which is C implies A, which we have seen previously. So for A implies C now, okay, what is the support of A and C? If you go to the two item set here, support of A and C is 2. Then divided by support of A. What is the support of A in our one item set is 2. So 2 over 2, we are going to have 1. So we see 1 actually is indicating 100%. 100% satisfied is greater than 70%, which is the minimum confidence. So that means this rule satisfies. That means wherever there is a purchase of item A, it is implying that there is a purchase of item C. It's 100% confidence. So can we check in the data set and see? We go to the left-hand side here. Where we have A, we have C. We have A, we have C. Yes, you can see based on this, that means it is what, 100%, because there is no place where we have A without the C. So wherever we have A, we have C. So that means that it is 100% confident that wherever there is a purchase of A, there is also a purchase of item C. So what will be, we take it as a reverse. C implies A. So now we are going to take the support of A and C the same, which is 2. But now we are taking what? The support of the antecedent, which is going to be what? Support of C, which is 3. Now we have 2 over 3, which is 0.67. 0.67 is indicating 67%, which is less than the minimum confidence. So this rule is indicating that actually it is not necessary to say that wherever there is a purchase of C, we apply the purchase of A, because the confidence is indicating 67%. If you look at it here from the data set, you can see it, C and A, and then C and A, and then there is another C here where there is no A. So this is why C, and there is another transaction where completely there is no C. So this is why we have the 2 over 3, which is 0.67% or 67%. So it is simple. Then maybe we can leave this one for you to try it. You sit down at a later time, try following the rule, find out for two items set B and C, find out these two rules, B implies C. Just follow the protein method as we did here, and then find out what is the confidence. Does this satisfy? And then for items set B and E, also you can do. For C and E, then find out what are the confidence, and can we have all the confidence, but you have any confidence that is not satisfied this minimum confidence, then it has to be pruned and then removed from the vote. So for 3 item sets, all the same. So for 3 item sets, this is a process. So from our previous frequent item sets, we have only one place where we have 3 item sets. Is 2, is a support of 2, which is equal to the minimum support. So now for 3 item set B, C, and E, that means we are going to have different rules. One rule may be B and C implies A, where there is B and C, it is implied that there is a purchase of E item. Okay, so the confidence formula, if we are talking about B and C implies A, that means we are going to find out the support of B and A and C and E, B and C and E, divided by support of the antecedent. Support antecedent here is B and C. So now divided by B and C. Right? So now that means we are looking at the confidence of this B and C implies E. We mean that we need the support of B and C and E, which is here. We have it here, which is cycled here, 2. Then divided by the antecedent support of B and C. If we go back to the 2 item set, what is a B and C? B and C, we have 2 also. So that means we have 2/2 for this particular rule, which is saying that it is 100% confidence also, because it is only one place where we have it. That means the 100% confidence that wherever we have B and C, and then we have E. So you look at the data set here. Can you see B and C and E? And then B and C and E. Then, so you see that we have wherever there is B and C at the same time, then we have E. So here we have E, but we don't have C. So this is why it's not considered. So it is 100% confidence that where there is B and C, actually it is implying that it is 100% confidence that there is a purchase of E item. So you can also find out for confidence, for different item sets. So take this as your example. Try and see that you can practice it. Then find out for B and E, which is implying C. And then also for C and E, which is implying B. You already have the table. You just substitute the formula, the values in the formula, and then make sure they satisfy the condition, because this is very important. Once the condition is not satisfied, then it will be prone and removed from the data. So this is how the algorithm keeps on generating, looking at the frequent items, generates the rules. Look at because as we are always saying that the data mining always work with the rule. Even in the classification, we could remember the algorithms are trying to generate the rules. What rules can tell us that whatever we have here, we have it in the left-hand side, we have in the right-hand side. That is the if-then rules. So always trying to satisfy the if-then rules. If this happens, then this will happen. This is how the models actually try to find out the relationship between different data items. So also in this association, it's trying to find if this happens, then this will happen. Then at the end of the day, the rule is being used for what? To take appropriate decision. So weaker, even though we are going to do the weaker exercise maybe next week. So of our week next week, we are going to have test. So we can see how we can generate rules. A weaker tool can be used to find the frequent patterns and visualizing the rule sets actually. So always trying to find the antecedent and the consequent of the data, and then calculate the support and then the confidence. So this will help us actually to. So we can use weaker to visualize that. Maybe when we come to lab, we'll see how we can find out. So now, as we have been saying, actually, one issue of the Fourier algorithm actually involves what is called the multiple scanning, because of this too much candidate generation that involves the algorithm. So what is the improvement of the Fourier method? Because definitely, actually, whenever we have a particular method, we are always trying to optimize, to find out how does this algorithm be improved? How can the algorithm be improved about the better solution? Because that is the essence of computing. Computing always tries to solve the problem of speed and accuracy. If, for example, now, okay, we have the accurate, we measure accuracy of the algorithm is good, but actually the speed, the execution is very low due to the certain factors like this different candidate generation, many candidate generation, then we have to think of how to improve. So actually, there is ways for improvement. So the major computational challenge that this algorithm a priori has is what is called the multiple scans of transaction database. If you can see, previously it has to scan for one item set, it has to scan for 2 items set, it has to scan the database for 3 item sets. As we have said earlier, what of the data is have thousands of transactions, and then have maybe a series of items set, like 20 items set, 40 items set, both at the same time. Because so actually there has to be a way that this kind of multiple scanning is controlled. And then also another issue related to computation is the huge number of candidates generation. Actually, as we say, you can see many candidates. It has to generate the candidate, then prune it. If which is not satisfied, it has to be generated first, then remove it from in generating the list. And then tedious workload of support count. Yes, actually, you can see one item said how many support do we have. If the transaction involve many, maybe 100 of items, oh, so what is the support of item 1, item 2, up to item 100. So this is actually a tedious work that the algorithm is doing for counting the support of the candidates. So how does this one improve? The general idea is that to reduce passes of transaction database scan, that is this transaction database scanning, which we have here, which is multiple scanning, it needs to be reduced, which is critical. So that means this is one way that the performance of this algorithm a priori can be improved. And then the second one, to show the number of candidates, actually, especially as we said, there is a huge number of candidates. So now how do we shrink that number of candidates? Another way or another possibility of improving the performance of this algorithm. And then facilitate support count of candidates. How do you think we can the support count can be improved so that actually that tedious workload of support count for counting for candidate can be minimized? Because once we say that, okay, these are the computational challenges, definitely the method or the way out has to be find out. So this is why actually another form of method, which is called frequent pattern algorithm, is proposed, that to partition the data only twice. So this algorithm, FP come to what? To address these challenges. So try as much as possible to see that it addresses these challenges. So this is why now we always try to compare to say, okay, now compare these three algorithms and see which one the better performance. So its method is like that, simple. Scan database only twice instead of multiple scanning here. So it will scan, the algorithm will just scan the data set 2 times, the first time and then the second time. We will see how they do the scanning when we come to discuss the frequent pattern or FP algorithm. So the process is here. One, we have the transaction data. So the first phase of the scanning, it will divide the data into n partitions. And it will divide the data, then find the frequent items local to each partition. And that is one scan. Okay, so now after dividing, this is why we call it divide and conquer approach. To just divide the data into what particular number of partitions, then we'll find the frequent item set what local to each partition, depending on the number of partitions. So it will just scan, do the first scanning there. And then next, it will combine all local frequent items to form candidate item sets. Okay, so now it has partition 8, scan, then it will combine them now to form one candidate set. Then lastly, find global frequent items among candidates. Once that is another scanning. This is why we say it involves only 2 scanning. This is why it do the first scanning in the phase 1, and then coming to phase 2, then it will do the second scanning, and then finally produce the frequent items in the whole data set. You see, so now it is trying to what? To reduce the passes of transaction data scanning, to shrink the number of candidates, and then facilitate support counts here. It's trying to solve this problem. So you look at this, for example, now. So for example, let's say, okay, now you have check A, B, C in the data set. Now instead of A, B, A, C, etc., now it will just check A, B, C, D as a whole, instead of checking A and B, B and C, because now this is different kind of generation as we have in the previous algorithm, in the behavioral algorithm. So FP gross will just check A, B, C, D in the data set. instead of checking A and B, A and C, A and C. So now if the transaction involves money, then it will just look at the data, partition it into different number of us. Now this data set, this has 1 item per transaction, 2 items per transaction. Okay, now it will scan. Instead of checking A and B, B and C, C and D, it will just check A, B, C, D at the same time. So trying to what? To reduce the transaction, the scanning of the data set. So this is how the pre-conflict algorithm is working. So next slide specifically is going to talk about the pre-conflict algorithm, and then step by step on how this algorithm is being done or can be used to generate the rules. So now, where do we apply this kind of algorithm or association rule? As we said, actually, we have given one example using the basket analysis. So the buying pattern can be what? Can be determined by the analysis. Set of products someone bought in one trip to the store. Items here are representing the products, or real market baskets, where we have chain stores keep cards of data about what customers buy together, and then hash what needed, or maybe amount of dollars needed to be supported. Then, like the Amazon's people who bought X and Y at the same time, all this is a buying pattern that can be determined, can be analyzed using the association rule mining. And using the result, it will tell us how typical customers navigate stores, as them position tempting items, to just tie in tricks, e.g. run sell on their pass, raise the price for milk product, for example. So all this result can be used to actually help us know the customer, how the customer navigates stores, and then how they are tempted with the particular items in the store. From there, then you can also suggest, especially in the case of marketing, and then a lot of things actually, how to maybe do some reach out to the customers for some promotions, and then how to control some prices. All this kind of analysis can help the business, because that is the essence. Why we do the mining is to get insight, to make some certain predictions, and finally to use that predictions for decision making. So another area of application, we apply association mining of this particular algorithm in document classification. Here we say, okay, now the concept of basket analysis can be applied to document classification. What is considered baskets here is documents, because it is document classification. Containing those sentences, for example. So the sentences that we have in the document are the items. So this is why you see that today we are sending assignments. The lecturer will say, okay, now we'll check the plagiarism. So the sentences in your document will be compared with the other documents through that system of maybe plagiarism check like Tonitin. So finally, it will tell you that, oh, there is strong associations between these items and this item. So this is why it is giving you the percentage. So this is why you see that even the university will tell you, oh, you need maybe 25% or less than 25% or less than 30%, because this is the association, trying to determine the association between different sentences, and at the end of the day, to tell you now, okay, now, because it's just all about mining. It's trying to mine the data that is coincide or that is correlated with your own document. So the system will tell us this is a percentage. So this is why the university or the faculty will give you the threshold. That is what is a threshold, is maybe 30%, less than 30%. Anything above 30% is not acceptable. So as I said, items that appear together too often will be represented or represent the plagiarism, the case. So this is what you call document classification. So we apply this method for basket analysis, or notice items do not have to be in bid basket, or some items that are not supposed to be in this document. And then also it can be used in drug effect analysis. So here the basket may contain patients, and then the items may contain drug and its side effects, because items just simply the data values that we have in each of the item. Then it has been used to detect combination of drugs that result in particular side effects. So maybe a particular patient was given 2 or 3 medicines at the same time when he visited the hospital. So from there, okay, now maybe he reported the side that he has side effects. Then another patient also reported that he has side effects. So from there, they can analyze and say, okay, now we give them because they have similar maybe we give them similar medicine at the same time. Okay, now we realize that patient 1, patient 2, patient 3, at the same time, with all of them, we give them aspirin as a medicine. So maybe that aspirin is what to make them to have a side effect, because at the same time, there is association between the medicines that they were given. And then absence of an item needs to be of that, as well as presence. Yes, drug analysis. Okay, now what is supposed to be in the list of medicines delivered to a particular patient, or what is not supposed to be there. Based on the result of the analysis, then we can withdraw a particular medicine from the patient, or we can add particular medicine to him. So this can also be used actually to as a association analysis or market basket analysis method or concept can be applied to this method, and a lot of basis where this can be applied. So in summary, actually, we have discussed association on mining as a background. And then, as we said, actually, it involves 2 parts: mining the frequent item and then generating the rules. So finding frequent patterns, association, or correlations among set of items or objects in databases. This is simply what we mean by associational mining. So trying to look at the data set, find the frequencies of the items, and then find out what is the association between these items, and then finally use that particular result for decision making in a particular organization or in a particular business. So we have also seen the basic concepts, that is the association rules and support confidence framework. How does it work to actually determine the association or correlation, that is the lead. And then we have discussed the measure of interestingness, that is support confidence and the correlation, which is also called leads. And then for today, we also discussed the Fourier algorithm, where we see that involve the candidate generation algorithm, and then test of mining frequent items and then generation. So I think because of the time, maybe the time will not allow us to discuss in detail about the FP cross algorithm. Now we can use it anytime you have any question. There are some references that you can actually are important for you to visit if you want to learn more concept of data mining in general, as usual. So if you have any question, please, we still have time, and we can discuss.
For now, no, sir.
So well understood.
Yes.
Okay. So I think that's one of the group last week, yesterday or day before yesterday, said they want to discuss about the group project. I told them that we finish our lecture on time, then we can have maybe a few minutes to discuss. And then after the class, I will share with you the mock test, maybe later in the day, so that you practice it at your convenience, because the test is coming off next week. So the RP has already directed us to share the mock test with you, which we will do, inshallah, later in the day. So if you don't have any question, then maybe the group that want to discuss their progress, then we can use the remaining time to discuss the progress. And next week we continue with we'll discuss the next algorithm, that is FP cross. So are there any group interested to discuss the project progress? I think one group contacted me yesterday through WhatsApp. Right?
Sir, I think it's my group. Wait a
Okay,
minute.
it's a group. Okay. So I think it's okay. Then the others we can log out. It's already over. Muhammad Umar can stop the recording. Then we call it a day, inshallah, to limit next week. So our test is going to be during the lab session. So prepare yourself well for the lab test 2. As I said earlier, I will share the mock test with you, and make sure you sign your attendance in the future. Right?
Okay, sir. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
so thank you. Terima kasih.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you,
So
Dr.
for the
Thank
group,
you, sir.
so the
Thank you,
group
sir.
the group should remain so that we can discuss the progress.
Okay.
This time.
Doctor, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, wait.
You want to share your screen?
Wait in a moment.
Okay.
How to share it? A little. It's Azan.
Okay. Yeah, we can wait.
Yeah. Let's wait for the Azan to finish
Let's wait
first,
for
okay?
that. Then yeah, let's finish that then first.
Okay. Okay, Doctor, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Do you see this screen now? This is our PDF.
Yeah, can you zoom in?
Okay, zoom in.
Small. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So this is our A2, the data population. So this is
Okay.
the data. Before we do anything, we have the ID here.
Okay.
And with a quick select and remove, the ID here is gone. Now the first attribute is the limit balance.
Okay.
So moving on. Yeah, okay. Moving on. First, we change the data type. Those data with categorical, we change it to nominal. So first we have sex. So the command is simple: choose unsupervised attribute numerical to nominal. We choose for here for the sex, and it comes like this. This is become male and female. Then we do the same for education.
Okay.
First we have there, then we have like this. This is after we change it to nominal, and finally we have for marriage. Okay, this is for marriage. Okay, moving on. This is our study for numerical and nominal. This is the graph for limit balance. This is for age, and this is for bill amount. For this, can I ask if you want the numbers? like for the standard deviation, minimum and maximum. Do you want that, or you
Which
want
one?
just the graph?
For which one?
For this
For,
for the
for
study of
the
numerical.
for the data set, maybe we can summarize because of the slides. Maybe you can summarize the attributes in the table. It's better
So
because of the time.
so I
Because of
should
the
include.
space.
Wait. So I should include the minimum, maximum, standard deviation, and the others lah.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the
Okay.
table. Yeah.
Later I put it in there. So this is for nominal, like earlier, this is sex, education, marriage. Okay.
Yeah.
So for our data, we have noises.
Okay.
In the education section, we have noises here. We have a lot of high graphs, but they always also have low graph, like a graph at very low, very small, very few data set. So to remove it, we filter unsupervised instance, remove the values. We just choose our attribute and remove here lah 0, 5, 6, 7. Wait, this is wrong. Ignore this. But after we remove, it become like this. All of the small poles have gone, have become reduced to 0. You can see here is 0. Okay, we do the same for marriage. Here, after we filter, the small poles have been gone. So we assume here this is not married and this is married. Okay, moving on. After we check for filter unsupervised intercalated range, we have found that our dataset have outlier and extreme values. This is it, the graphs.
Okay.
Okay, and to remove the outliers and the extreme values, so it will not differ our studies. So here we just filter unsupervised instead, remove values, go to outlier and extreme value, or this should be 26, and enter 2 for the nomic indices for yes. So this is after remove.
Okay.
This is before, this is after. For outlier, and this is for extreme value. Okay. So this is the data set. After we clean it, we can zoom it. We may take a better picture after this. So move on for data A3, data preparation, the transformation. Okay. So here we have the min-max. We have the description here. If you want me to read it, I can read it to you. So min-max normalization is applied to the numeric attributes, which are limit balance, bill amount 1 to bill amount 6, and pay amount 1 to pay amount 6. These attributes have vastly different ranges. For example, limit balance is in the tens or hundreds of thousands, while pay amount might be 0 or small. Normalization scales all these features to the range 0 to 1, 0 or 1. This is necessary for distance-based algorithms like KNN or grading-based algorithms like neural networks to prevent attributes with larger magnitudes from dominating the learning process. Categorical attributes, which are sex, education, or age, are not normalized. So, filter unsupervised attribute discretize. We apply, it will change all our numerical data or our numerical attribute to discrete. So this is for limit balance, this is bill amount, and this is pay amount. If you zoom here, we can see that it's 0 to 1. Okay, moving on. Then we have discretization. We only discretize age. So it divide the age group to 21, 32, 32 to 34, 43, 43, 44, 44, 45, and 65 to 67 since it's been 5. So this is the graph. And then we have a new attribute, which is total pay, total bill amount, and total pay amount from the selective. So this is the graph, and this is the formula. To filter this, we use filter unsupervised attribute expression, and inputting this formula, we get this graph. This is for total pay. This is total bill, same formula but different attributes. And this finally, this is for total pay amount. We should have the data set. This seems someone forget to put it here, but this data set in the end will have all of the attributes, including these new attributes.
Okay.
That's all for now.
Okay, so now what are you going to do next?
The A4 lah. The
A4.
is, let me check.
A4,
reduction.
A4, you have to develop the model first before reduction.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to do a B with the process data, then you come back to A4. Then
Okay.
also go back to B. This is how the
Okay.
process is supposed to be. Now you
Okay.
have you finish preparing the data, you have the process data after pre-processing. Then you jump to part B, finish
Okay.
B, record the results, then go back to A4 with that data set process, then reduce it, get another set of data with
Okay.
minimum number of attributes, then go back to B,
Okay.
and then develop the model. Finally, you compare the different results.
Okay. So we have to do B 2 times lah.
Yeah, B supposed to be 2 times with the process data and with the reduced data. You follow the
Okay,
template, to check in the template, you will see the diagram down there.
Yeah, I see
It
it.
is indicating, yeah.
So first we use the B for this one, the process
Yeah,
one, and
yeah,
then we reduce it, and then we go back to B.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So then
Okay, okay. Thank you.
compare the results. Yeah.
Okay,
Make
okay.
sure you apply the same algorithm in first part because we are comparing the same
Yes.
thing.
Yes, yes.
Just to show the differences in the data set.
Okay.
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 Okay, good.
Okay. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you. Any other, don't have any question?
No.
No, for now, okay. So the only group or there are any other group? I can see many members here. Or they are not around. Okay, so see you inshallah next week.
Thank you, sir. See you next
You are
week.
welcome. See you inshallah.